So without further ado, now, so I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Mary's book, but and the story will speak for itself. But I think a really big part of Mary's book is the world of the tree. So it's a world where it's a gigantic tree, a tree as big as the Himalaya mountain range. So, and the part I'm going to read from Tymons Flight is from the prologue, and it is an introduction to the world of the tree. The body of the pilgrim, bound to a hastily constructed fire and wrapped in cheap bark fibre, slid almost too easily over the dirigible's deck rail and plunged without a sound into the deck. Father Adelaide Fernie leaned over the rail and peered after it. The tiny human bundle dipped and spiraled as it fell between the gigantic leaves of the world tree, glancing once, briefly, against an outcrop in the sheer wall of the trunk before spinning to oblivion. The priest winced, then shrugged as he drew back from the rail. At least there had been no cause for scandal. At least they had been rid of the corpse before they arrived in Argos City Air Harbour and were subjected to unwelcome questions and tedious procedures from the quarantine guards. In the end, the sick man had been as self-effacing in death as he had been in life. Invisible, emaciated by the fever that took him, no more than a husk of parched skin and dried bone. It was a mercy, thought Father Fernie. A heavier man would have been knocked off his bier during the fall and gone to his rest in ignominious fits. The priest turned his attention to the group of foreign pilgrims huddled on the deck of the ship. He was glad to see that they too found no cause for criticism in the funeral service. They were not mumbling to each other in their wretched language for once, murmuring the tree knew what behind his back. Nothing is free, he declared to his bedraggled flock. The tree does not give her blessings for free. One must die so that others may live, so that the canopy may continue to flourish, the rains to fall, and the fat to flow. His sermon was interrupted as the dirigible's ether sacs released a tremendous hiss of gas, and the ship resumed its descent towards Argos City. Father Fernie coughed in annoyance and waited for the drawn-out sound to cease. His audience took advantage of the lull to shuffle to the railing themselves, blinking in the updraft. A magnificent vista opened before them. The dirigible great ship with its teeming mass of sails and ether sacs was a tiny dot against the western marches of the tree trunk, a mote on the vertical face of the world. To starboard of the vessel, in front of the pilgrims, stretched a vast and furrowed mountain of bark, so wide that its curvature was almost invisible, and so high that both its summit and its base were lost to view. The immensity of the wall was broken by a profusion of spoke-like limbs, the largest many miles in length. Several hundred feet above the dirigible, the trunk culminated in the gently rising plateau of branches and twigs that made up the central canopy's crown. Its summit lay more than 7 leagues to the north and east of Argos City, and 5 miles higher than the frozen upper fringes. The great ship had spent the better part of its recent journey in warmer latitudes, skimming in a wide arc above the southern marches of the tree, just above the leaf tips. But now, as it made its approach to Argos City, it sank beneath the green billows, slipped between mottled twig shafts and towers of alternating leaves, taking several minutes to pass each burnished blade. The dramatic treescapes of Argos were said to be amongst the loveliest in the world. The foreign pilgrims did not appear to appreciate the beauty of the central canopy for its own sake, however. They gaped over the railing after their departed colleague, as if they were searching the trailing mists for some sign, as if they were expecting him to rise up again like a saint in rapture. They wore matching tunics of grey. Their faces were ugly and grey too, thought the priest, dirt pale and lined with fatigue and privation. They were silent, but they smelled. He could not help but shudder as he shrank back from the unwashed bodies crowded next to him at the rail. At last, the hiss of ether faded, and he was able to speak again. Death is the consequence of life. Violence is the price of peace, he announced irritably, raising his voice to draw his listeners away from the gods. It has always been so. Because of our terrible sins, we must buy God's grace at a price. Okay, so that is